Have you ever realized that women were treated unfairly and couldn't vote? The 19th Amendment fixed that problem. Do you know how that affected American women? I will be telling you all about the 19th Amendment and how it affected women's lives. The 19th Amendment passes the right for American women to vote. If the 19th Amendment never passed, women wouldn't be voting today. It all started back in the early 1800s when slavery was legal in about half the country and women's rights weren't the main focus. Women started joining men in lectures, writing to politicians, boycotting Southern products. Free black women started the first all-female anti-slavery groups. Some groups welcomed white women too. It was not until 1848 that the movement for women's rights began to organize at a national level. The first women's rights convention was called the Sakina Falls Convention. The Sakina Falls Convention was led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. Sarah and Angelina Grimke, sisters from a slaveholding family, were also important. They attended anti-slavery groups in protest of slavery and joining in fighting for women's rights. In 1869, Stanton and Susan B. Anthony formed a National Women's Suffrage Association. A group of delegates led by Stanton produced a Declaration of Sentiments document modeling the Declaration of Independence, which stated an essay for women's suffrage. After that, Wyoming became the first and only state at the time that allowed women to vote. The 19th Amendment was first introduced to Senator Aaron in Congress. He felt that women should be able to vote, but it was ratified. 9 years later, the debate was rejected by 19 to 34 votes. It wasn't until the early 1900s that Congress looked back at the amendment. President Woodrow Wilson, who was against the amendment, called a session of Congress in 1919. He urged them to pass the amendment. Finally, on June 4, 1919, the Senate passed the amendment. Then many more states began allowing women to vote. By 1920, 35 states had ratified the amendment. However, one more state was needed for the three-fourths requirement of the Constitution. The amendment and the final decision came down to the state of Tennessee. When Tennessee voted on the amendment, it was a tie. Then resident Harry Burns changed his vote, voting for the 19th Amendment. He later said that he was against the amendment, but his mother got him to vote. Next year, the November election of 1920 was the first election where women could vote. After years of protesting, women gained their right to vote. Now, more women than ever were empowered to follow a large range of political interests as voters. The 19th Amendment was the first big step on women's rights affecting women today.